Welcome to BIV Today, the daily business program from the newsroom at Business in Vancouver. I'm Hayley Woodin. As we know, many BC condo owners have been grappling with steep increases in the costs of strata insurance. But according to a new report, we're not necessarily alone. The Home Insurance Price Index from LowestRates.ca shows that insurance costs for condos are continuing to climb across the country. I'm joined today by the CEO of LowestRates.ca, Justin Thouin. Justin, thanks so much for coming on our program.
Thanks for having me, Hayley. Great to see you.
One of the things I'm really interested in is the extent to which insurance costs for condos vary province to province in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. Typically, they're fairly similar in terms of the premiums that consumers pay, and they really do correlate with condo prices. So the more expensive that your condo is, typically the higher your condo insurance will be because it's more expensive or less expensive to fix your condo when there's a claim. But in terms of kind of the amount that insurance costs for condos have been increasing across the country, in the last year, BC and Alberta have been leading the pack. So BC, if you look at how much condo insurance has increased over the past year, it's increased by 18%. When you look at Alberta, it's increased by 20%. And then when you look at a place like Ontario, it's increased, but still less, only about 8%. And these increases really only are in the condo market, because when you look at homes, so detached or semi-detached homes, you're seeing pretty flat prices. In BC, prices are up 3%, but essentially inflation or slightly greater. So condos really are the area where consumers are seeing massively increasing prices.
And what might be some of the reasons behind why condos are really seeing those increases, whereas detached homes are not?
Right. So what causes prices to increase in the insurance industry, no matter what sort of insurance you're looking at, is really the risk appetite and something called the loss ratio for the insurance companies. So when insurance companies don't have an acceptable loss ratio, and that's the difference between what they're collecting in premiums versus what they're paying out in claims, they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to pull out of the market entirely, and when an insurance company pulls out of the market entirely, it means there's less competition and it means higher prices for consumers, or they're going to raise their prices and they're going to raise their deductibles. And both of these things have happened in the BC condo insurance market. You've got insurance companies that are no longer willing to insure consumers in condos in BC because they're simply losing money in that product vertical. And so they're pulling out of the market, leaving behind companies that are increasing their deductibles and increasing their premiums because they want to make sure that they're profitable. And so what's happening is the BC condo owner is suffering and having to pay higher prices as a result.
So what sets apart, say, condos in BC in terms of risk versus condos in a place like Ontario? Why are we seeing more dramatic increases?
Right. Well, not that much. I would say a lot of the same symptoms that are causing the condo insurance to increase in BC are now starting to catch up in Ontario. So one of the major factors is just the price of everything has gone up. In both BC and Ontario, prices for real estate have gone up in the last 10, 20, 30 years. And as condo values go up, all the other costs go up. So the prices to repair go up. Right? The prices to maintain go up. So therefore, when there are claims being made, the insurance companies have to pay out more than they have in the past, and therefore they need to charge more. But in terms of what's happening between BC and Ontario, I think Ontario is just a little bit behind the curve, maybe because there's less extreme weather than there is in BC. But I think with the 8% increase year over year in Ontario, that's going to continue escalating and going to follow the paths of BC and Alberta.
I'm curious too to get your insights on what's happening in Alberta, because we can kind of put Vancouver and Toronto on an even playing field when we talk about the dramatic increases we've seen to the cost or price of real estate, but Alberta is not necessarily in that same category. So what are some of the factors driving rates over there?
Yeah, a lot of it is extreme weather. So there's a lot more extreme weather in Alberta than there is in other provinces in Canada, whether it's the massive difference in temperatures, whether it's the winds, whether it's the hailstorms. And typically, those sorts of extreme weathers can cause the kind of catastrophic loss results in the building. So if you have a large building and you have water cascading from the top floor down, it can very quickly lead to a $500,000, $750,000 claim for that building. And the insurance company, as a result, in the future is then going to have to massively increase premiums and massively increase the deductible that the building is faced with. So a lot of it really is that extreme weather that causes these large claims.
I also want to ask you about another very disruptive force in our world right now, the pandemic. Have we seen COVID-19 really impact property insurance to any significant extent?
Well, that's one of the pieces of good news from our report, is that we expected, because people were going to be spending more time at home, that home insurance prices and condo insurance prices were going to go up, just because there were going to be a lot more claims. People were going to be doing things in their homes that were going to cause them to have to make claims. And that has not been a factor. If you look at detached home insurance prices and semi-detached home insurance prices, they're really not up. As I said, across the country, in some provinces, they're down. In some, they're flat. In BC, they're slightly up. And that's a reflection on the fact that insurance companies are not having to pay out more in claims than they historically had been because of COVID-19. And that really, it brings to light the fact that, home insurance prices are really based on those kind of catastrophic claims. So, basement flooding, or in Alberta, hailstorms or very large fires. They're not typically caused by what you would do in your home yourself, but rather external factors. And so COVID, thankfully, has not led to an increase in insurance premiums because of it.
I know that the insurance market is to some extent cyclical, but you're also talking about these extreme events that don't necessarily go away when a cycle changes. So could we expect to return to perhaps lower rates once the cycle shifts to a softer market? Or do you think that we might, generally speaking, continue to see rates climb because of some of these extreme weather events or other factors?
I think the condo insurance market is facing a problem right now. We need to find a way so that there can be more symbiosis in terms of how much the insurance companies are paying out versus how much they're collecting. And so I think that's going to have to be a collective effort between the insurance companies and the governments in terms of potentially capping the amount that insurance companies could potentially charge individual, condo unit holders, but in return, capping the amount that insurance companies may be able to pay out, because it really comes down to that. There just has to be some equality so that the insurance companies can make some money. So I think there's going to have to be a lot more work done there before we start to see a turnaround in prices.
That makes sense. Justin, thank you so much for coming on our show with your insight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Hayley. Anytime. Really appreciate the time.
That's Justin Thouin. He is the CEO of LowestRates.ca. You can visit their website if you're interested in learning more about this home insurance price index. I'm Hayley Woodin. This has been BIV Today. Thanks so much for joining us. Our show will be back with a new episode tomorrow.